Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Spitfire Formula 4 Radial Fulls. Now the one I'm talking about specifically is going to be the 58mm 97A version. Now I kind of decided to not do this in my room and just make this video at the beach, so please bear with the background noise that's ongoing. So let's get into it. I've had these wheels for about 7 months or so, getting them on and off. It wasn't really consistent until the past 2 or so months. It was just more like I would put it on the board if it looked good, or use another board. So I wasn't really consistently skating these for about 4 or 5 months, but for about 2 months now I've been skating these very consistently. So starting off with the pros, if you like really wide wheels, this wheel is super wide. I would say it is the most widest option on the market right now, if you're talking about modern skateboard wheels, not so much reissues. The only wheel that I can think off the top of my head that's wider than this is going to be the Dogtown 80s reissues. But again, it's not like a modern shape. So just to show how wide these are, I'll put the actual measurements on the screen right now. Here's the measurements, but comparing to the Dogtown 80s reissues, the Spitfire Formula 4 Radial Fulls, and then the OJ 56mm Elites, you can see that it is a very wide wheel. Now what's that good for? Well, it's really nice for pushing through crust. If you skate in an area where the terrain isn't perfect, or it's really crusty, there's a lot of debris, these wheels are really nice for pushing through all of that. It makes the ride really nice, smooth, and comfortable, while still being able to get that Formula 4 quality and get a really nice skate session going in. I think this is both attributed to the 97A durometer and the shape of the wheel, where you get a slightly softer durometer where it still performs like a nice hard wheel, still slides like one, but you sacrifice a little bit more slide just to get a little bit more grip. And then that big, nice, wide riding surface just pushes a lot of stuff out the way. It's a really nice wheel for that sort of stuff. Now concerning like smooth areas like skate parks, it's also a really nice option for that. I didn't find I had a lot of problems using these wheels on smooth surfaces. In fact, for some places I did prefer them because they would grip a lot better on slippery surfaces compared to standard 99As. So if you have problems like slipping out at the skate park because it's too slippery, or you just feel like you need more grip but you still want a hard wheel, the durometer option is really nice for that. I found this wheel to be fast and keep its momentum in both crusty areas, street spots, and really nice smooth areas and skate spots. So it's a really nice versatile wheel. Now concerning sliding, when I was power sliding with these, like hill bombing, I found that these had a really nice grippy slide, but also smooth and controllable. I would say it's one of my favorite wheels to power slide on, just because it feels really nice. And the only time I slipped out is when I was going too fast for my skill level, and then I tried to power slide out of it. Then the board would either like slide on too fast from out under me, or the board will just stop in one place and I will get pitched forward. But that's more of a skill issue rather than the wheel itself. So I find like depending on your skill level, these wheels are really nice to power slide on. Now concerning like ledges, like tail slides, no slides, and your pinch for like crooks and all that, again, it's a really nice option for that. I personally didn't find any problems with this, despite how wide the wheel is and despite the slightly softer durometer. Now, I'm sure that some people might find that it's not up to their liking because they're more used to a harder wheel like a 99A or 101A, but that is just going to boil down to personal preference. I find that this is something that you will eventually get used to. So, no issues with the power sliding or pinch or no slides, tail slides, all of that good stuff. I find this to be a really nice wheel and durometer for all that stuff. Now a really cool effect with these wheels is that they actually decrease your usable hanger size. So why would this be a good thing? Well, anyone that's subscribed to my channel would know that I really prefer wide boards, and I really find them to be a lot more fun than the standard popsicle shapes. But because of that, you have to use a wider truck, and sometimes the wider truck feels like it's too much truck. So if you're let's say you're on transition and you're trying to get onto a 50-50 grind or a 5-0 grind, wider truck is going to generally make it really easy to do that, to get into it, but to lock in and stay in, that coping has so much room to move around, and it's really hard to get a really nice secure lock in depending on your skill level. So sometimes the truck feels like too much truck. Now specifically with the 58mm versions, since the widening surface is so wide, it is going to cover a lot of your usable hanger space. I find it's the equivalent of one size down. So on the screen now, it's been a while since I've taken these pictures, but I think it's an Indy 149 with radial fulls compared to an Indy 144 with Spitfire Classics. So one size difference. And as you can see, with those wheels on and compared, they virtually have the same hanger space. So I find that to be a really nice option, especially if you like a wider truck, but you just want, you know, some less hanger space without having to actually decrease your axle length. Really nice option for that, and it's actually one of the main reasons why I use that wheel. So yeah, I said a lot of good stuff about this wheel, but what about the cons? Well, it's gonna be a pro actually, depending on how you like your skating, but a big con is gonna be it's a super wide wheel. I just said it's a pro. Well, for some people, they like skinnier wheels. They find that like options like these are going to be too wide, and other options like the conical fulls or conicals or radials, maybe it's too wide for them. They want a much more slimmer shape, and that's understandable. It's going to make the board feel more nimble, overall lighter, and you know, some people just don't like how they look. So yeah, a con is that they are going to be a wide wheel, but if you're buying this wheel expecting it to be really skinny, I'm not sure what you were expecting. So there's that. Now another con is that it is going to decrease your hanger space. But again, I just said it was a pro. Yes, it is going to be a con to some people, especially if you're using a smaller hanger or a smaller truck size. So I find this benefit to be really beneficial on the wider trucks, but when you're putting it on a smaller truck, yeah, it is going to feel a little bit weird. I find that when I put it on a smaller truck, I felt a little bit more tipsy, a little bit more imbalanced when using these wheels on a smaller truck. And I found that when I was doing something like ollieing into a 50-50, I found that sometimes I would actually land on the wheel on the coping rather than the hanger on the coping, because I just wasn't used to how wide these wheels are. And again, it is going to be something you'll eventually get used to, but for some people they may not prefer that. So just keep that in mind, that the wide shape of this might be a detriment to you. Another con is that these wheels are going to be heavy. Now it may not seem like that when you first pick it up, but when you put it on your board and the combined weight of your board and your trucks and everything like that, it is going to make a substantial difference compared to much more slimmer wheel like Spitfire Radial or Spitfire Classic. So for those that want a much lighter board, they want to pop really nice fast ollies, this is not going to be the wheel for you. Now moving on, these are not as fast and as slidey as the Spitfire Formula 4 99As. And that is going to be expected because of the slightly softer durometer. You're sacrificing a tiny bit more slide and a tiny bit more speed just for that extra grip. Personally, I like this. But for some people, they might find the wheel a little bit too grippy and a little bit too slow for their liking. So again, you're going to want to keep that in mind. It's going to depend on what sort of terrain you skate. Now moving on, these are going to cost a lot more than the other options out there. Now for normal Spitfire Formula 4s, the price has risen up in the past few months or so. So the price right now, it's about $40 to $43 for a set, depending on where you're getting it from, USD. But for the Radial fulls, they're going for $45 to $50 for a set, depending on which ones you get. So yeah, keep in mind that they are going to be a lot more expensive than other options out there. Now if you're concerned about the longevity, these started out as 58. Measuring them, they're about 56-57 millimeters now. So I would say longevity is pretty good for that. You are getting your money's worth. But again, if you don't want to spend that much, you are going to have to look somewhere else. And moving on, the options of these are super limited. Off the top of my head, the more common options are going to be the 97A versions in 54, 56, and 58. So not much options there. Now for the harder durometers, the 99A versions and other sizes like 59s and 60s, Spitfire, for whatever reason, are making these super limited. So the only ones I know off the top of my head is going to be whenever they do a Cater Pro colorway or graphic for him. They release it in like a 59 or a 60 and the 99A version. And if you wanted that harder durometer in the same shape, you might be out of luck, or it's going to be a really hard find. So again, keep that in mind. You may be forced to use the 97A version regardless of your preference. So that's it for the pros and cons. Now for like a note. I know a lot of people online ask if these are cruiser wheels or if they can use it as a cruiser wheel. I mean, depending on your preference, you can, but it's not designed to be a cruiser wheel, and it's not a cruiser wheel. It's a 97A version. I would say it's designed for good street skating, or if you want a little bit more grip, or you skate a lot of crusty surfaces where you really need to push through all the debris and the crust just to get a really nice good speed. I would say that's what those wheels are designed for. They're not designed as hybrid wheels, they're not designed as cruiser wheels, but again, it's not my skateboard, it's your skateboard, so you can use it for whatever you want. But that is my take on that question. And yeah, there's a lot of better options out there. For a cruiser wheel, you have the OG Super Juices, the Bones HEFs are really nice as well, Powell G Slides. If you wanted a more hybrid wheel, you know, you have everyone's favorite, the Powell Peralta Dragons or the Bones X formulas. Those are going to be really, really nice for that. But you know, you just wanted a really nice, good skateboard trick wheel that's a little bit more grippy than your usual standards, but also really nice and wide and can push through a lot of crust. Really nice option for that. So what do I think of this wheel? I think it's one of my favorite wheels on the market right now. I love how it looks on the wide boards. I really like how it decreases the hanger space, and I really love how it performs. I find that it meets a lot of what I'm looking for out of my board, and it gets the job done really nicely. Now, if it sounds like the wheel for you, that's great. For some people, it may not be. They might find it's too wide, too heavy, it's harder to pop the board, or maybe the slide isn't as what they like, maybe it's too grippy. You know, there's a whole lot of variety of reasons why people may not like this wheel, but it is going to boil down to personal preference. So if it sounds like the wheel for you, that's great. If it doesn't sound like the wheel for you, that's also great as well. You know, build the board however you want it. So yeah, that has been another video. Thanks for bearing with me with all the background noise and stuff. And as always, if you have a comment, question, or you think I missed anything, just leave me in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.